it really does show Secretary's commitment to Indian country.
Yat-e, I'm Jordan Benebigay, News Director of Digital at ICT. President Donald Trump released his proposed budget for the 2027 fiscal year. The budget reduces funding across the board for the nation, including cuts to Indian country that would affect housing, education, and more. Rudy Soto, who is the Executive Director for the National American Indian Housing Council, told ICT that the president's budget request, quote, signals concerning reductions that would constrain vital tribal housing programs, even as housing needs across Indian country continue to grow. However, the budget gave an increase to the Indian Health Service. ICT Southwest correspondent Daniel Herrera has more.
That's right, Jordan. I was recently at the 2026 Tribal Self-Governance Conference in Phoenix, Arizona, where Human and Health Services Secretary Kennedy gave a keynote address to tribal leaders and members from all over the country. He spoke about the president's proposed budget and the work HHS has been doing, specifically regarding Indian health services.
Second, we are investing at the scale. The president's fiscal year 2027 budget includes $9.1 billion for IHS. This is a $1.1 billion increase from the previous year. And that's an 11% boost. And I can tell you this, there is no other group in my agency that's receiving an 11% raise this year. And that is an emblem of my personal commitment to the Indian Health Services.
I sat down with Senior Advisor to the Secretary, Mark Cruz, who spoke about what increases were coming to IHS.
We're really proud of this budget. It has an 11% increase for IHS, and what that translates to is an additional $1.1 billion to invest in tribal health care. Everything from dental services to mental health, alcohol and substance abuse, purchase and referred care, our facilities, these things are seeing increases.
Navajo Nation President Boo Nygren hopes some of the funding will help a medical center in Gallup, New Mexico.
I'm very impressed with Secretary Kennedy and the work that he's doing for Indian country, and I think it just stems from his connection and his ties with Indian country. And I think when it comes to IHS, the first and foremost, our number one priority is Gallup Indian Medical Center, because that facility serves thousands of Navajos, thousands of Pueblos, and Apaches as well too. So we got to get in the direction and a mode of how do we make that become a reality within the next couple of years.
A.C. Locklear, CEO of the National Indian Health Board, says he's optimistic about the budget, but there's still more work to be done.
There was about a $1 billion increase across the board, which during this kind of era of budget neutrality, most things are getting a cut. It really is, it really does show Secretary's commitment to Indian country and specifically Indian health. There were some cuts in water and sanitation and things like that. But honestly, I think it was kind of due to increases in other areas such as electronic health records, the facilities construction list. We're looking at a need of around $70 billion, so $9 billion isn't really it's a drop in a bucket. It leaves us completely relying upon third-party revenue, Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurance. And also in a time where private Medicare and Medicaid are up for a lot of cuts, it does leave us even more vulnerable in Indian health. I think the electronic health records had a increase, but it's a very small drop in the bucket for what they need to fully roll that program out. We're going to really be pushing for special appropriations for that, just so that we can get that across the line. It's really important that we have that underlying infrastructure in Indian country for Indian health. It really is the foundation to a lot of the ways health systems function.
The proposed budget is now final and will have to be defended in appropriations hearings, then passed by Congress before the president signs it into law. For ICT, Daniel Herrera Carvajal.
This year, the country turns 250 years old and Colorado turns 150. To mark the milestones, the Colorado legislature allocated $500,000 for statewide celebrations. What are the territory's indigenous communities bringing to the parties? The truth. On a bus.
I like to think of it as a comprehensive Indigenous peoples history in Colorado.
That's Nejone Morgan, the Danette artist who helped turn an ordinary school bus into a mobile exhibit on Native culture and history in Colorado that will travel the state sharing the stories.
Talking about what happened, what really happened in our histories, and bringing that into the modern day, seeing how can we heal from this, how can we understand this.
Dubbed the Breathing Healing Bus, it was created by a community of Native artists, activists, and historians.
Yeah, it's really far to the left.
The project grew in part out of the 2024 report of the Native-led Truth Restoration Education Commission, or TREC, that detailed the history of Native nations in Colorado. It highlighted the 10 federally recognized tribes that ceded land within the state borders. Today, only the Southern Utes and the Ute Mountain Utes maintain territory on reservations in the state. But the message of the Breathing Healing Bus is, well, healing. Here's Sid Whiting, the Sichangu Lakota citizen who helped on the bus project.
Our main goal is that it helps in the healing process and also helps to get our people shown in a beautiful light, in a good way. It might seem like it's hard to do with this bus,
because of some of the difficult events in Colorado's past.
The Sand Creek Massacre, the annihilation of the buffalo, and those sorts of things. You would think that by showing them, it would really be harmful to people, but people begin to understand their own healing once they see the trauma of others.
Dr. Terry Bissonette from the Bay Mills Indian Community and the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation was a central figure behind the 2024 TREC report and the bus project.
We want to show that truth and healing can exist in the same space. It's extremely important. We don't want anybody to go through this exhibit feeling triggered, traumatized, re-traumatized, feeling guilty, none of that stuff. We want folks to feel uplifted. We want them to feel inspired. We want them to have a call to action. Native history is Colorado's history, and it's important for as many Coloradans to know and understand that history so that we can confront it and we can all move forward together. And that is really what the ultimate goal is.
A goal not lost on the commissioners behind the official state commemorations. Here's Jason Hansen, who serves on the America 250 Colorado 150 Commission, which donated $7,000 to the bus project.
We're really interested in understanding how we got to now, and we understand that there are many moments that we don't celebrate that brought us to now, because we think of this anniversary as a moment to take stock, but also to look to the future. And I think we all want to envision a brighter future.
Let's end with a couple of young artists who helped create exhibits on the bus. Here's Elizabeth Tafoya, Hickory Apache.
You know, we are still here, even though many people don't understand it or don't want to believe it.
And then there's Justice Maldonado, Northern Arapaho.
I feel like this bus is so strong because it brings memories and the truth about Native Americans.
The Breathing Healing Bus will make its first official stops on May 9th on the 2 Ute reservations in southwest Colorado. In what is today Denver, Colorado, I'm Stuart Huntington for ICT.
Tsapakasla. Tsapakasla. She's strong. Tsapakasla. Tsapakasla. She's strong. Tsapakasla. Tsapakasla. She's strong.
With the title, The Problem of Indian Administration, you know it can't be good news. Released in 1928, it's commonly known as the Meriam Report for its technical director, Louis Meriam. The 847-page report dramatically influenced federal Indian policy for decades. Here's historian Peter DiCarlo from the Indian Land Tenure Foundation.
The initial report was written by a team of almost all white researchers. Only one researcher, Henry Rocloud, who was Ho-Chunk or Winnebago, was a member of that team, but they went out and they told this story. And its conclusions were, quote, that an emergency exists. And its two major conclusions were Native people would either assimilate or that they would exist in a bare minimum of existence, that they should have a bare minimum of self-respect in front of this tidal wave of white folks going across the land.
Now, a major report is underway to commemorate its 100th anniversary. Led by the Indian Land Tenure Foundation with the American Indian College Fund and the Brookings Institution, a Meriam Centennial Report will address the current condition of tribal nations. Here's DiCarlo again. He's the project manager for the new report.
This work, of course, rejects that. It wants to reclaim that narrative with all Native authors, and it is a forward-looking document that reflects on the past but looks boldly into the future.
Here's Indian Land Tenure Foundation President Howard Valandra.
When you look back historically, it all started with land. And had natives not had any land, consequently, there probably wouldn't be an issue today. But natives had all the land. And so all these policies were put in place. Everything from treaties, law enforcement, social services, education, healthcare, all were put in place as they took acre by acre.
Its anniversary was the topic of a panel at the Indian Land Tenure Foundation in Minnesota in March. Here's Robert Maxim from the Brookings Institution.
100 years ago, reservations were still being allotted. By some estimates, nearly 9 out of every 10 Native children were being sent to boarding schools. About half of Native people weren't U.S. citizens until the Indian Citizenship Act of 1926. And, the federal government ruled, and I use that word ruled really deliberately, Indian country really with little input from tribes or Native people themselves. It was not as a broad policy assessment, right? It was how can we have these programs that serve Indian country, that serve our wards, operate more effectively. And so Secretary Work selected the Brookings Institution, then known as its former name, the Institute for Government Research, to manage the study. And Brookings chose an individual, statistician Louis Meriam, to lead the effort. So the first step that they did, Brookings, in order to have government not bias the report, is they went out and secured about $125,000 in philanthropic funding from the Rockefeller Foundation. It's about $2.2 million in today's dollars. The way it landed, I think in official Washington, it was a bit of a watershed moment. In particular, it was the first major policy report to squarely blame the federal government for the condition that Native people face. Prior to that, reports, including the one in 1856, had largely blamed Native people in the problems that Native people had for the economic conditions that they had faced. So it was a ground shift. But the report also had a lot of shortcomings. I think the standard the language it uses is, by today's standard, quite racist if you read it.
Oglala Lakota citizen Terry Janice says this anniversary comes at an important time for Indian country.
Our thinking is that 2028 is a significant year. It's not only a time for Indian people to have their voice, but it's a uniquely interesting political time with the election happening and some of the dynamic that's going to be occurring. So our vision is very much grounded in the Indian voice and Indian ideas. Our vision is very much grounded in the future for Indian communities and Indian people, in defining who we are and what we want to be as true sovereign beings, not only from a governmental perspective, but in our individual capacity as well.
Emily Whitehead, a Sichangu Lakota citizen and vice president of the American Indian College Fund, looks to the future.
We've talked a lot about and heard a lot about the relationship to land. It's so fundamental to our identity, our spirituality, our sense of well-being, our sense of purpose. And it's just as important as our language and our songs. And our songs tell us stories of who we are and where we've been. And so when I think about this work, I think about, what songs will tell the stories of the future. And we really need something that captures multiple areas of need, our multiple focus areas of what our leaders are focusing on in Indian country. And we need different modalities. Yes, we need TikTok, we need quick videos, we need one-pagers, we need all of that information because we really need our Native youth to be engaged, to feel a sense of purpose, to feel an engagement in their community, to know that they're cared for. What I learned from my Tochka Wizi Kwalidi was really how to look at 7 generations over 175 years. And so when I think about the future of what we're wanting for Indian country, I think we're just at a really phenomenal time.
From the homelands of the Mdewakanton Dakota, for ICT, I'm Shirley Snavy.
Nitsika tai gitsi. Nitsika tai gitsi means I feel the good in what you've done. Nitsika tai gitsi. Nitsika tai gitsi. I feel the good in what you've done.
Anishinaabemowin speakers, teachers, and learners have gathered here at the Kellogg Center in London, Ontario for the 32nd annual Anishinaabemowin Language Conference. For over 30 years, Anishinaabemowin speakers and advocates have gathered to share knowledge, stories, and their challenges to sustain the Anishinaabe language.
I think that's the important part, that to bring back the language to our youth. And I think the theme is trying to bring back the language to the youth. I think it's what is encompassing for this year. So the whole idea is to bring forth language revitalization within our youth, to get them to understand the importance of and how we value our language.
Every year, the Anishinaabemowin Language Conference has grown, attracting people from across Canada as well as south of the border. Hundreds of people looking to learn and share Anishinaabemowin gathered in London, Ontario for the 32nd annual conference from March 26 to 28. Numerous resources included online language courses, how to create immersion experiences for learners, and integrating fun and games into language learning.
I'm a firm believer that everything must be community-based. Community-based is so critical and so important. And I truly appreciate being here. I've learned so much from the speakers, and it's just so beautiful and wonderful just to be immersed in the language, to hear the Anishinaabe language being spoken. And this helps, it rejuvenates my spirit, and it also, also rejuvenates my language skills as well. So this is so critical. Beautiful people, beautiful people.
Workshops were held to help attendees learn more about their history, their rights, and ideas to empower future generations to learn Anishinaabemowin.
I heard that there's a linguistic genocide is kind of how they put it, with that disconnect. And I actually went to one of the workshops on silent speakers, and so that they were first speakers, but it was taken from them, and that disconnection. So they're still language speakers, but they don't have the confidence to speak. And I thought that was really empowering, and how we're trying to also create more speakers and second speakers, because the goal is to then have first language speakers again. Because again, it's the basis of our entire culture and way of life and our worldview, and reconnecting to that.
In London, Ontario, from the 32nd annual Anishinaabemowin Language Conference, I'm Special Correspondent Miles Morisseau for ICT.
Hello, friends, relatives, and fellow sports fanatics. My name is Colby Kickingwoman, managing editor at ICT, and I am joined again by Brent Cowie, founder and editor of IndianSports.com. Thanks for joining me, Brent.
Always glad to be here, Colby.
Men's college basketball wrapped up on April 6th with the University of Michigan defeating the University of Connecticut Huskies in the national championship game. Our favorite Lumbee coach, Kelvin Sampson, and the University of Houston Cougars lost in the Sweet 16. What were some of your takeaways from their second weekend run?
But yeah, Houston, had a great season in the Big 12. They were ranked in the top 5 most of the season, top 10 for sure. And then they exited the, March Madness tournament earlier than they wanted to. But overall, as their season went by, I think they, had great success and have a lot to hang their head on and look into the future.
March Madness, the big dance, isn't the only college postseason tournament. There's a lot that goes on around the country outside of the big one we all know and love. Can you talk about Trace and Eaglestaff and the West Virginia Mountaineers and how they ended up?
Yeah, Trace and Eaglestaff, great. Not the season he exactly won it at West Virginia, but he still had success during the season. And they weren't picked for the big dance, but they got invited to the college basketball crown, where they just recently won the championship this past weekend. And, if you ask me, I as a student athlete, I think I might want to play in that tournament because each team, the championship team got $300,000 as a team to split amongst each other, but all the other teams, each game, they got 50,000 and 100,000 each time they advanced. So, Trayson did pretty good with his team to come out with some NIL money out of that tournament, as well as the championship. But, great season, great kid. I talked to him at the end of the Big 12 tournament and asked him, is this, where the road goes next for him after his college season was over. And he said he's definitely going to look at going pro and explore those opportunities and try to get his opportunity to compete at the next level with our current NBA players that we have as well.
Speaking of the NBA, San Antonio Spurs had a Native American Heritage Night on April 6th against the Philadelphia 76ers. I'd previously did a story on their play-by-play announcer, Jacob Toby, who sang the national anthem. I saw Lindy Waters got a couple minutes. And then on the Sixers, Marjon Beauchamp moved up to the main squad from the G League. So that's just, how does it make you feel to see kind of, two natives playing, but then one on the side that's also making an impact and involved in these?
Yeah, for sure. You got Marjon and Lindy and Kyrie Irving in the league. And it's always phenomenal when the teams can face up, with each other. This season, Kyrie is recovering from his injury, so he's not playing this year. So, to see Lindy and Marjon link up after the game and swap jerseys and all the festivities that went on with the Lindy Waters camp the day before with the Spurs and the natives, indigenous in that community. I was just beaming with pride when that, as that information was going across social media and stuff like that. That's what our native youth need to see is our natives succeeding at that level and then working with each other and respecting each other. It was really cool to see for me.
Bouncing back to college, college season rolls on, one championships to another. The gymnastics national championships are about to get underway, and Sienna Alipio is a gymnast for the UCLA Bruins. How's her season been? Have you been following her?
Oh yeah, for sure. We've been following her since last year, and this is her senior year with the Bruins program, and she had a phenomenal senior season where she finished in first place at various competitions on the balance beam, scoring 992s and 99 aboves. She's also competed on the floor this year, and she also competed on the uneven bars as well. So stepping out of her comfort zone to help the team, I think, has really empowered her confidence to really have great success this season. So, for her to earn All-American status in that field and their team to win the NCAA regional championship recently, and now they advanced to the NCAA championship finals.
Then elsewhere in college athletics, the track season for a lot of schools is underway. You got your eye on anybody?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm an old runner from back in the days and made my bones in sports doing running, and I'm always a fan of it. And I'm always excited to see all the talent that we have out there with Koo Stevens at Washington State University. I mean, he recently in the indoor season ran a 3:59 mile, which has probably been since the 80s, since last time we had a Native American athlete run under 4 minutes for the mile. And, he's getting ready to compete in his outdoor season. But even then, we have two great Native American ladies that run at Northern Arizona University, Haley Burns from the Northern Cheyenne Tribe and Allie Upshaw from the Navajo Nation. They recently, at separate meets in California, established not only two school records in their events, they also broke the Big Sky Conference records in those events, with Allie running the 10,000 meter run and Haley running the 5,000 meter run. So that was really cool to see, and a great way to kick off their outdoor seasons as well.
Yeah, that's great. Native athletes doing awesome stuff across a whole spectrum of sports. And University of Montana's in the Big Sky Conference, so I'll have to keep an eye out for whenever that meet is here in Missoula and go check them out.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I always encourage our fans or viewers to go out and support these athletes, even if they're not from your tribe or your community. But all these Native athletes, when I visit them, they love to see fans, they love to see people. It keeps them going, and it inspires them to compete and train and try to be successful.
Well, thanks so much for joining me again and talking Native athletes, Native sports, Brent. I hope we do it again soon.
Yeah, for sure, man.